This is unbelievable.
Yeah, you guys got into a mutual combat, okay, argument or whatever. All right, but evidence and witnesses have posted that you started the physical portion of it, okay? Hence the reason why you're being arrested, okay?
Two doctors have two radically different versions of what went down on a golf course 2 years ago that left one man seriously injured. We're going to speak with this alleged victim in this case, get his side of the story as the alleged attacker prepares to argue self-defense at an upcoming Stand Your Ground hearing. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Golf is supposed to be relaxing, right? Well, if you play it, you know it can also be frustrating, but it's not supposed to be violent. That's a given. It's not supposed to be violent. I say that, but 2 years ago, there was a very serious altercation on the Harbor Hills golf course in Lady Lake, Florida, and it left one man seriously injured, and he has been pushing for this criminal case to go to trial. We're going to talk to him in a minute, but we are seeing two radically different versions of what went down. So I will set the stage for you as we go back to April of 2023. That is when Dr. Joseph Sivak, a physician, and his wife decided to take a walk along the golf cart path at this country club. However, that peaceful stroll didn't last long because the couple then are allegedly confronted by a local dentist, another doctor, Dr. Eddie Orobtig, as well as his son. So according to an arrest affidavit from the Lake County Sheriff's Office, Dr. Orobtig confronted the couple for walking on the golf cart path. So this is a rule that a lot of golf courses have, typically restricts people from walking in areas meant for the golf carts. There's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, you need the golf carts to get through, but also it's a matter of safety, people walking there. But that is when Dr. Orobtig reportedly chastised Dr. Sivak for violating the rule and demanded that he move. And that is when this situation escalated. And it eventually led to Dr. Orobtig's arrest. In a 911 phone call made by Dr. Sivak's wife, you can hear her as she desperately tries to tell authorities what's going on.
911, do you need to fire an ambulance?
911! We are having an altercation on the golf course.
Okay, do you know the address?
We need somebody now.
Okay, ma'am, what is the address that you're located at? Ma'am, what address are you located at? I can't send help to you if I don't know where you are.
Yep. I can't give you the address.
Okay, what golf course are you at? Ma'am, what golf course are you at?
Oh! Stop it! Oh my God, they just won't stop.
Okay, well, what's going on, ma'am?
They're fighting with golf clubs, kicking the out of each other.
When Lake County Sheriff's deputies arrived on the scene, they found Dr. Sivak distressed, badly injured, bloody. His son actually took a video on his phone of what was going on.
And he hit him, and then he just kept kicking him in the ribs.
After he was on the ground.
After he was on the ground. And it was really not a nice way to fight.
Body cam footage obtained by Law&Crime revealed that Dr. Orobtig was actually surprised when deputies placed him under arrest.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, I wasn't lying to you, brother. I honestly didn't know until they walked over here and said
Why
something.
am I being arrested, sir?
I'll explain to you all women, okay? You're big and juice, I'll be nice and give you 2 handcuffs. Alright, reason you're being arrested, okay? Yeah, you guys got into a mutual combat, okay? Argument or whatever. Alright, but evidence and witnesses have posted that you started the physical portion of it, okay? Hence the reason why you're being arrested, okay?
By the way, not to take away from the seriousness of this case in any way, but look, I got to tell you guys about something. I am very excited because we have a brand new partner and sponsor for Sidebar that helps make these episodes happen. Brickle. Now, this is a men's grooming line that I have been using personally for years. No joke. I literally use their moisturizer and eye cream every day. Also, hair products too. I mean, I see your comments online. My hair has become Quite the topic, right? Both insulting and flattering at the same time. Love these comments, right? But they have all of these incredible products, and now you can try it all too with their free, yes, free 16-piece sample kit. This includes face washes, anti-aging creams, hair care, so much more. All you're paying for is the shipping. There's no subscriptions, there's no strings attached. It's just a one-time introduction to the brand to see what might work for you. So right now, you can head over to bricklemensproducts.com/sidebar or scan the QR code on screen and claim your free kit today. Now, according to the affidavit, Dr. Sivak told police that he was struck with the golf club first by Dr. Orobtig, saying the defendant struck Dr. Sivak with a golf club on his leg and a physical altercation began between them. He then stated at some point that the defendant struck him with a golf club on the side of his head from behind, and that during the altercation, he defended himself by striking the defendant with his water bottle. He stated that the defendant continued to strike him several times and that he believes his ribs were broken. And in fact, the responding officer did observe Dr. Sivak bloodied, cut up, his earlobe ripped, and then he was taken to the hospital for suspected broken ribs. Now, the version of events that you just heard is not what Dr. Orobtig says happened. Here is what the arrest affidavit says regarding his version of events. Quote, defendant stated that he was golfing with his son when the victim and his wife walked on the golf course and he asked them to get out of the way. He stated that the victim then got into his face and shoved him. He stated that the victim then spat in his face, at which time a physical altercation began between them, and the victim struck him with a water bottle in the face and attempted to take his golf clubs. He stated that he then believed the victim was attempting to grab the golf club to strike him and his son. Therefore, he continued to strike the victim in order to prevent him from taking the golf clubs. Here is the thing when we're thinking about a self-defense stand your ground argument, which I'll talk about in a minute. In the affidavit, a deputy notes that Dr. Orobtig didn't have any marks on him that were consistent with being struck, though he did have a cut on his hand and blood on his clothes. His attorney told Fox 35 in a statement the physical evidence does not support Mr. Sivak's version of events. Mr. Sivak's narrative has numerous inconsistencies and discrepancies when compared to the physical evidence and the 911 phone call. We are committed to presenting a vigorous defense that will demonstrate Dr. Orobtig's use of force was justified. Now, despite the defense's arguments, Dr. Orobtig was arrested. He was charged with aggravated battery. And this now leads us to where this case stands today, because a stand your ground hearing is expected to take place next week. Under Florida's law, under its stand your ground law, individuals are allowed to use force, including deadly force, in certain circumstances and situations when they believe they are in imminent danger of physical harm. They don't have to flee. Dr. Orobtig's defense team is expected to argue that he was acting within his rights under the law, maintaining that he was merely protecting himself and his son from an unprovoked attack by Dr. Sivak. All right, so with all that in mind, I want to bring on a special guest. I want to bring on Dr. Joseph Sivak. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on here. I was telling you this before we started. I know this is not easy, recounting what happened and talking about this. So thank you for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time. If you can, I think the best place to start is to just briefly go through your version of events of what happened.
Right. Well, it's, there's so many details. It's hard to talk about it briefly, but, basically, my wife and I have been walking for years. We went out to take one of our normal walks. The path we were taking was something we'd taken probably a couple hundred times since the pandemic. The golf cart paths, the golf course goes through our neighborhood. We were about a 10-minute walk from our house. It was a happy day. At any rate, we were finishing our walk out on the path and coming back to finish our walk. And we heard a golf cart coming up behind us really, really fast. And on the golf cart paths, we're not on the golf course. We're on the path that goes out to, I guess, where they tee off. It's a concrete cement sidewalk. We heard someone coming up fast and yelling from behind, "Get the F out of here, get the F off the golf course, get the F out of here." Just vitriolic, vile language, yelling, swearing at us. So we startled, kind of scared, both turned around and saw this golf cart approaching with a man in his, didn't know it at the time, but it was his son. It was like a teenager, 13, 14, 15 years old, driving the golf cart. I waved like this, sort of to flag him that I heard him. He was probably 20, 30 feet behind us. And I waved and said, sorry, we're getting out of here, we're leaving. And mind you, we had walked this path many times, as I said, hundreds of times. And occasionally, maybe 10% of the time, we pass a golf cart coming on to the golf course and sort of, wave, get out of the way, how you doing, kind of, have a nice day, good round, whatever. Never had any issues or problems. We had, go ahead.
Can I ask you about that real quick? So just to make sure, no one ever said, hey, you're breaking the rules. You're not allowed to be on this this pathway. Is it against the rules at this golf course? Do you know?
I've never seen anything. We were members for 8 years in good standing of the country club, social members. There's different levels of membership. We went to events at the country club. We weren't golfers, but tennis, pickleball, dinners, all that kind of stuff we had access to. We were pretty low-key active members, never had an issue. And yeah, in all those years of walking these paths, never had anybody, reprimand or say it's against the rules. I never saw anything in writing that said you couldn't. Now, the person that attacked me cited that there's a no trespassing sign, but it says for Harbor Hills. We live in Harbor Hills. One of the fairways, butts up to our backyard where, trees are, and we cut our lawn, and it's right on the golf course. It ends and starts there. I mean, the parameters, the boundaries are kind of vague, but it's funny because I just was looking at a card I got from a neighbor a couple weeks after the attack. And it said, we and our guests have often taken walks along the golf cart path. Never would occur to me that the crazy loon neighbor on and on would yell at me and beat me with a golf club. At any rate, we've heard from many people. This isn't unusual for people that live in the neighborhood.
So he starts, according to you, he starts yelling at you, telling you to get off. What happens next?
Oh, yeah. He wasn't telling us he was swearing and yelling at us. It wasn't, it wasn't, could you please move? Would you like to move? It was vitriolic, threatening language with lots of profanity directed at us. So there was no way to get off of this golf cart path the way it is without going past the golf cart where he parked. So we had to walk towards him, about 20, 30 feet and walk past him. And we had said, we're leaving. He said, you have no right to be here. And again, I had no idea who this person was. I again, didn't know. He didn't seem to represent, the Harbor Hills Country Club or anything. But we started to walk past him. He got out of the golf cart and started following us. We got past his golf cart. We're a few feet ahead and he's following us. And we're leaving. It was clear we're walking towards the street and the sidewalk and the homes to be off of this path. But he kept following and I turned and I said, what are you going to do? We're leaving. Are you going to attack us from behind? It was very, very terrifying and threatening. I hadn't ever experienced anything like this, and we were clearly past, and it was quite obvious we were leaving. I turned around and picked up the pace even more. My wife is walking, next to me or a couple feet in front of me, keeps following. I turn around again, and I said, stop following. We stood there eye to eye, probably 2-3 feet apart, and he's literally on my heels, and I turned. He stood there, I stood there, he spits in my face, and it wasn't, it was like I had to clear my eyes. It was just a real, hawker spit in my face. I wiped my eyes.
Let me just stop you right there. You didn't spit at him first. You didn't shove him first.
Oh, God, no. And in fact, in the police report, and even his son said in the police report by Officer Deputy Polo, his son said that he spit at me first. I mean, it was clearly, it was the first, affront of anything. I've never had anybody spit in my face like that. So I wiped it, out of my eyes. He hit me. He had a golf club in his right hand, and he hit me in the leg, the lower leg, kind of above my knee, with his golf club, and then shoved me. And at that point, I had a plastic water bottle in my hand hooked around my finger. And after he shoved me, I'm like, Lorraine, he spit at me. My wife is, 10, 20 feet away. And I'm like, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I'm not a fighter. I've spent my whole life, all my adult life, 35 years taking care of patients. I'm actually a physician, a medical doctor, and I've been a psychiatrist, worked with veterans for years, homeless population, indigent patients. That's what I spent my life and my vocation doing. I don't try to hurt people. And if I had hurt somebody as much as I was hurt and did that to someone, I don't know how I could live with myself. But spits on me, hits me, shoves me. I swung at him, and again, I'm not a fighter. I swung the golf or the water bottle sort of goes flying because it was just a little plastic hook at the top around my finger. So I swung, sort of grazed his head. I think his hair. I didn't really connect. Miss. The water bottle comes off the little plastic thing holding it on, and that goes flying somewhere. And at that point, I swung, again, I missed. I sort of grazed him. And somewhere at that point, I turned again to get away after I swung, turned away, and I saw the golf club coming, or a shaft, a piece of metal, like a rod coming at me. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground trying to get up, feeling the side of my head and my ear, and there's blood everywhere down my arm, and it's on my hand. And I tried to stand up, but I didn't know how long I'd been out. And the other thing, and this is really gross and humiliating, but I know I lost consciousness because right when I was hit, everything sort of went black, and I felt myself lose control, almost like you're having a seizure, lose control of my bowels and bladder. That has never, ever happened to me in my life. Anything remotely is resembling that. So it's a terrible thing, humiliating. I'm down. I try to stand up, and I don't remember much after that except getting just hit and knocked back to the ground. I remember the things I remember, and I don't know if it was 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you sort of lose track of time. I remember going out, like blacked out from being hit at least 3 more times. I remember trying to stand up. I never really swung again. I remember being on the ground and seeing and just looking at the sky. And initially it hurt, but after a point it was like watching a show or a movie of just these fists coming in my face, and I wasn't even feeling the pain anymore because I ended up with a concussion and a traumatic brain injury, and there's a point where you're getting clubbed into unconsciousness over and over. You don't even feel pain. It's like anesthesia because you're out. So I remember that. I remember trying to stand up. My legs were, I was all over the place, unbalanced, I guess. Don't remember much of it, but I remember my wife screaming at this person, telling him to stop. And at one point she stood, right up to me, as, much larger than her. And I stood up, and I remember pushing my wife back because he lunged at her, and I thought he was going to attack or assault or do something to her. And I shoved her back. I said, "You're not going to attack my wife." And again, getting hit and being on the ground again. I remember him having the golf club in his hand, and I remember pointing at it and trying to grab a golf club to defend myself because I thought at that point, at one point I thought I was not even alive. I thought I was dead, or I thought I was going to die. I tried to grab a golf club from the back of his golf cart, reaching for that, never got it. But I remember him looking at me to hit me again, and then looking at the golf club, and he threw it down really, really violently on the ground. It's like he didn't even know it was in his hand. But I, at that point, somehow got hit again. I'm on the ground. I remember one other thing I remember is being on the ground, being kicked in the side over and over again, and trying to grab his leg to get him to stop or pull him down, because it must have been 5 or 10 or 20 kicks in the side on the ground. But I remember just being hit over and over again on my back. Yeah. So, and just seeing the sky and just seeing these fists coming in my face.
That is just an absolutely harrowing account. I was hoping, and I'm so sorry, what the injuries you sustained and what you went through. And I want to just clarify that a little bit. You said you suffered a brain injury. Talk to us about what injuries you sustained, and also how has that affected you to this day?
Yeah, so it's going on 2 years for this case, and the injuries I sustained from the attack, I actually had 5 fractured ribs on my left side. One of them was comminuted, which means shattered into many pieces. In my face, I had about 25 to 30 stitches in my ear. My earlobe was coming off. My face, I had around my eye, the orbit bone, the rim of that was fractured. My nasal bone right here was depressed and again shattered into pieces, and my jawbone here was fractured. I had nerve damage from what's called the infraorbital nerve coming out, and I have chronic pain right here in my face and jaw and teeth that never really goes away. It's because that's from the nerve damage. That nerve got kind of crushed that comes out from the eye socket. The traumatic brain injury, saw a neurologist about that. They said a moderate traumatic brain injury, losing consciousness. 4 times, being hit over and over again in the head. I have problems with my balance. My hearing is worse. I had some hearing loss over the years, but much worse. My vision, I've had more problems with that. And the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, suffering with. My wife is struggling with that too, because she witnessed the whole thing. She was terrified. But nightmares, bad memories, and most of all, we're not the same. Neither of us feel safe. We're tense, we're anxious, on edge, irritable all the time. And just, we can't ever relax. It's like there's no peace. There's no joy. We don't laugh anymore. We don't really feel safe in the neighborhood. We try to overcome it and desensitize ourselves and take walks, but very difficult to do. Headaches, like I said, my balance is off, all kinds of pains through my temples and shooting pains. And it's sort of awful.
Doctor, talking about what you're talking about, and now hearing that the defendant in this case, Dr. Orobtig, is claiming self-defense, that he has an upcoming stand your ground hearing. How does that make you feel, his version of events?
It's like the whole thing is happening over again. This stand your ground, I can't really, talk about the case. I guess it's not surprising. There's no, he didn't try to help. He didn't call 911. I look at the police Axon videos of all this. He refers to me afterwards as quote to the police officer, he says, between you and I, he's, meaning me, he's a woke piece of he's crazy. He's a psychologist, So just to see that and wondering who or what. We're not particularly political. I've certainly never been called woke. I've never been called anything. My wife and I are very low key about politics, but he must have thought, I stood for something that was detestable to him, to call me those names and so much anger.
And he didn't know you. He didn't know you before this. You didn't know him.
I had no idea who it was. When I found out later in the hospital, they said he was released on bond. I don't know how long he was in jail, and they said his name. Then I knew of him who it was, but I had no idea at the time. But yeah, I believe he knew me, or thought he knew me, or thought he knew who I was. I'm not a psychologist. Again, I'm a physician, but psychiatrists and psychologists.
Right. People. With the stand your ground hearing coming up, is this something that you're going to attend? Are you going to testify at?
Yeah, I've been, and my wife has to also. We're witnesses. It's in the docket. We've been subpoenaed. I guess, and I'll just talk in generalities about the stand your ground law, because I never understood this, and I don't know how it works in other states. But with stand your ground, This is you file this. It's a motion to basically dismiss or throw the criminal case out based on stand your ground. In Florida, stand your ground. If a defendant, it's charged with a crime, prevails or wins that case, that person, the way the Florida law is written, is then immune from any civil action. So, for example, if a victim had $50,000 or $100,000 in medical bills and they wanted to sue the person that victimized them, you can't, based on what happened in the criminal case and the stand your ground and prevailing there. So that's one thing. I look at it. It's funny because I look at things people think or believe. Even on the Law&Crime network, I've never responded to anything there before this, but people just have these assumptions that there's some huge lawsuit or something to file suit, which was in the public record. That lawsuit is stayed. There's no case right now. That's in limbo pending the outcome of stand your ground. And that's what happens. There can't be any civil suit until this stand your ground is resolved for a person. So there's no lawsuit at this time. And it just feels awful. It feels for the victim, I think, when these stand your ground cases come up, it feels like you're the one on trial. As the victim, I'm a witness. I have to testify. And it feels wrong with all the pain, with all the psychological, with everything that has been taken from us because of this attack is lost. And now to have to go through this and have the potential for the legal system, the criminal justice system, it just feels like more of a violation. I mean, it's I don't know how to describe it. It feels like your very soul, your essence is being taken and stripped of you. And it feels like that's happening all over and over again with this case and where it's at now with this hearing.
What is your hope in terms of if this proceeds, past the stand your ground hearing, if the judge rules that stand your ground doesn't apply, this moves forward towards a trial, he could potentially be convicted, and it's a serious charge that has serious prison time, could be years in prison. Is that something that you're hoping for?
I just want justice. If this happened to somebody else, I think, what would be a logical, and you would want justice served. And I mean, I guess I still have some faith in the justice system, but I would, whatever a jury would hand down, I would hope it's fair and reasonable. And if someone is charged with aggravated battery with great bodily harm, there's a penalty for that. And I would want that person, the assailant, the defendant, the attacker, I want it prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Would it be nice to have some acknowledgement, some accountability, somebody to just have remorse of what they did and like an apology or just to get it? Yeah, I mean, that would be great. The way things have gone, I don't expect to see that. And,
I was going to ask you if there was anything you would want to say to him, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I think it would be, like, why? We never did anything to you. Why? Why? How? Why could you do this to someone? I mean, and I don't think there's going to be a good reason. I mean, I don't think, based on this attack, I mean, somebody that doesn't have remorse or show any, wouldn't expect to ever get an answer. I mean, but that's like the first question. I mean, why? And then how? How can you do this to somebody?
Doctor, before we wrap things up, when you look back on all this, and this is obviously a continuing case, we will see where it progresses to. Is there anything, you would advise people about? Is there anything, what do you take away from this experience when it comes to personal safety, confrontations? What do you say to people moving forward after experiencing this?
I don't know. I guess just be careful, like to say don't. I mean, we live on a golf course, so we hear golf carts all the time and it's causing flashbacks. So, I mean, we don't want to stay cooped up and isolated in our home either. But I would just tell people to be careful out there, because you just don't know what people are capable of. I mean, I think of just running into people anywhere, of all these road rage incidents you hear about. Yeah. And I would tell people to be very, very careful, especially with the way the laws are in Florida. I mean, you could theoretically be attacked for nothing and severely hurt or killed. And with this law, in theory, a person can just walk away with nothing. I mean, I don't know what the law was designed for, but I don't think this is a proper use of it. So I would just tell people to be very careful and don't take anything. Don't take your safety ever for granted. I mean, this is a 5-minute walk from our house. People feel they're safe in their homes. And, I would say, just be careful with your personal safety and never assume, when you're out there, you're safe anywhere, because, apparently you're not. We just wanted to take a walk and I end up in the hospital, with multiple fractures and a permanent head injury and post-traumatic. You just didn't expect that. I mean, it's hurt my wife. It's hurt me. It's hurt our family. It's hurt my son, the traumatization of this. So I would just tell people, please, be careful. You got to try to enjoy life, but be careful with others. And I can't think of anything we would have done differently. We were leaving. We were walking away. We were very clearly walking away. I don't know what else we could have done. I play it over and over in my mind tens of thousands of times, and I don't know what we would have done differently.
And you're still gonna have to testify about it, and maybe have to testify about it again if it goes to trial. And look, Dr. Orobtig will have his opportunity to present his case and his defense, and we'll see which way the court goes, and we'll see if this moves towards trial. I just want to say I'm really so sorry for what you and your family have been going through and are continuing to go through. Again, I know this isn't easy to recount this episode again, but I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much, and we're wishing you best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.